Hello there, you're on the Heart of Reddit channel. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Get your popcorn ready and enjoy. Scorching pepper jelly. I went through a canning phase. Jellies and jams, tomatoes and salsa. If I could water bath can it, I did. We had over 100 jars by the end of things, and to use up the rest of the peppers from making salsa, I made pepper jelly. Everyone loved it. My ex asked me to make him a batch of pepper jelly extra hot the next time I made it, since my last batch was great but it could be better, hotter. Cue Mick. A few weeks later, my ex was traveling for work and I still had peppers in the refrigerator, so pepper jelly was a great way to use them up. I used about a dozen serranos and habaneros each. The guy at the Mexican market was more than happy to help me pick the hottest peppers he had, so I tossed those in it, besides what I normally would add: bell peppers for sweetness, jalapenos, etc. And since I can't taste the stuff, ulcers, so no spicy stuff for this gal. I didn't know how hot it was. I could tell it was hot since my head was clearing up just from cooking it. Always a good sign. My ex gets home a few days later after I made the pepper jelly, and after a few minutes he is rushing for milk, ice cream, anything to cool off his mouth. He said that the heat was slow to build and it just kept building and wouldn't stop, and once it did it was fucking hot. I smiled and laughed as his mouth was on fire, his eyes watered, his nose dripped, he broke out into a sweat. All I could say was, "Hot enough now." He glared at me. Guess it was hot enough, lol. Already better. The other stories about doctor's notes reminded me of a time I worked via an employment agency. This agency treated its employees like they were the enemy. Whenever someone made a mistake, they assumed it was on purpose, and we were all trying to game the system. One day, I think I must have eaten something very wrong, because feel sick. I called in sick and had a truly miserable day. Luckily, during the night, things quieted down and I actually got a few hours worth of sleep. Not wanting to abuse the system, I decided to call in better again, despite still being all shaky, and go to work. I figured they'd appreciate my willingness to work, given the fact that they thought we were all lazy people, trying to get out of as much work as possible. But I couldn't have been more wrong. I was met with a, "You're better already. That's impossible. What did you have?" They're not allowed to ask this by law. "I bet you were just hungover. If you do this again, you're fired." At the time I had never even touched alcohol, so the accusation was ridiculous. But since they told me I shouldn't call in for a single day anymore, I complied. Now, every time I was sick, I made sure to call in at least 3-5 days, even if I recovered sooner. After all, getting better so soon is impossible. My manager voluntarily gave me my 2 weeks' notice. Last year I worked at a small non-profit thrift store, where my manager, GM of the store, was very passive-aggressive and felt threatened any time I pointed out the flaws in her sales ideas, or tried to improve certain workflows. After a few months and being assaulted by her husband for catching him stealing a TV, and her blaming me rather than admit that if I was a customer, what would have made that different? I started looking for a second job. Now I was only part-time there and wanted more money, and found another great job. As soon as I told her this, she was very upset, and said, "Well, I don't think you can handle 2 jobs, so I'm voluntarily giving your 2 weeks notice now." I adamantly refused, saying that no, my intentions were to work 2 jobs, with this being my primary. She said, "Well, think it over, and we'll talk next week." Next week rolls around and she says she already told her supervisors about it, to which I responded, "Look, you can fire me if you want, but you cannot voluntarily give my 2 weeks notice. I've been the most consistent worker you've had all year, and I don't appreciate this." She shrugged it off and ignored me. Well, next week rolled around and turns out literally everyone working there, including her, contracted a heavy flu that made tea impossible for the others to come in. Well, the day of my last 2 weeks notice had arrived, and I got a phone call from her practically begging me to come in on my day off, and all I said was, "Sorry, you voluntarily quit me, so I don't work there anymore." I went in just to see the carnage, and she was all alone having to deal with the usual crappy customers, and received donations for at least a week. Needless to say, I don't feel bad for it.